today I'm very excited to speak to my guest because she is an incredible woman and you will be amazed at her story, but she's also a really dear friend and I'm excited. So today my guest is Natalie Querioz. You know, I've never asked you how I pronounced your surname, is that right?
It's Querioz, but don't worry about it, honestly.
Okay.
I have so many variations, trust me.
I'm sure you do. Natalie is the best-selling author of Still Standing, a professional motivational speaker, passionate anti-knife crime, anti-youth violence specialist, and multiple award-winning charity fundraiser. Friday, March the 4th, 2016, in broad daylight, 8 months pregnant, Natalie, on leave from her professional career, was stabbed 24 times in the street with a 12-inch carving knife by a disguised attacker in a calculated and vicious attempted murder lasting a horrific 9 minutes in total. Despite suffering appalling life-critical wounds, Natalie and her baby, against all medical odds, survived, but with life-changing physical and emotional damage. The latter being extensively added to by the discovery of who exactly the disguised attacker was and a world of lies and of deceit unfolding. Since her horrendous ordeal, Natalie has changed her life completely, leaving behind a 19-year successful career in the pharmaceutical industry to start up 2 businesses, Natalie Q Inspired Limited and a non-for-profit community interest company, Inspire to Quit Blades, ITQB. So welcome, Natalie. So lovely to have you here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So lovely to see you. It's been so long, COVID.
It's way too long. So because my show is called Unbroken, the very first question I ask everyone is, what does the word unbroken mean to you?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think with Unbroken, we all talk about moments in our lives where we all say we're broken. You know, we're at the end of our tether, something awful's happened, and that's it. We do feel broken. We do feel that. But to me, Unbroken is about the sense of our spirit, and I always think of our spirit as a little flame inside of us. And this isn't being religious, although I did come from a Catholic background, but I am the worst Catholic in the world, so it's nothing religious at all. But it's about us having this little flame inside of us, and no matter what, that flame is there, I believe, until our heart stops beating and we stop breathing. And even though it might dampen right down in those really hard times, it's like a smouldering fire, and once we nourish it, it comes back up. And to me, Unbroken is that flame that always keeps going, that therefore our spirit is never fully broken. It's, as it says, it is a hill and it's quite a steep downhill. And as I'm walking down it, it's a tree-lined alleyway. So sort of picture the scene, you've got this sort of wide, and when I say alleyway, it's really wide, with a churchyard on the one side with a high wall, and there's these trees over the top. And I'm there, and so it's quite dark, it's quite secluded, and I start to hear this running, and I look over my shoulder, and there's a man, he's got his head down, he's got his hood right up, and my heart starts pounding, and a sixth sense, whatever, told me, I don't know, this guy's coming for me. And I remember I sped up because I thought, I just need to get out, because Trinity Hill opens out into a dead-end road, and I thought, if I can get out there, there's cars parked, I could see a man walking up the hill, and there was some buildings, and I thought I'll be safe. And I made it to that point. I actually got out of the tree-lined alleyway part. I got out in the open, and like I say, take you back, it's 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I can see the town centre ahead of me, like, I don't know, McDonald's is only a couple of 100 yards ahead, in effect, of me. And I was thinking I'm safe. I genuinely thought I was safe. And then I realised, without even looking over my shoulder, that this man was now right behind me. You know, that physical presence when someone's so, so close behind you. My heart's pounding. And I thought, if I just step to one side, one of those very clear, you know, go past sort of thing. So I feel uncomfortable with you there. And I did do that. I stepped out of the way. And as I stepped out of the way, he jumped on me, literally jumped on me from behind and pulled me backwards into him. And I thought I was being mugged. That was my first thought, was I'm being mugged. I've got this big baby bump. I've walked down a secluded alleyway. This is almost classic, you know, sort of woman alone, vulnerable woman at that, with a pregnancy. And I'm being mugged for my handbag. And I obviously say it was for my handbag. But before I knew it, the attacker drew out a knife, and within a split second, that knife was being used to attack me.
It wasn't just a knife, it was a huge, great big knife, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. you can imagine his arms clasped around me, and so his left arm is clasped with me to his body, and his right arm was free, and it was up in the air. And I remember at the corner of my eye suddenly caught the sight of this blade, and it was a 12-inch kitchen carving knife. You know, we're talking huge knife. And I was thinking, mate, you don't need that. What? You don't take my bag. But within a split second, he stabbed me straight through the chest, and not just once, but repeatedly. And life goes into slow-mo. If we were watching this on a film, we'd just be like, everything would go and slow down, because you're sort of seeing it, you're feeling it, but your head is still in this denial of, this can't be happening to me. It turned out to be my partner who was doing the attack, and this was a premeditated murder attempt. He wasn't going to stop until I gave up the fight, as it were. And
it was a completely shocking part, because you didn't find this information out until you had been airlifted by Midlands ambulance crew away to hospital, and you were moments really from both of you passing away.
Yeah, so the police who arrived at the scene, they started first aid, which is a very key reason. I talk to young people about the reality of knife crime, and I always say, if the police hadn't been there to give first aid, I'd have passed away, because they were stemming the blood flow very quickly.
Would have passed away.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you rightly say, I was airlifted, and when they airlifted me, they made all sorts of decisions again, which were critical. That my right lung had collapsed, but they didn't put a chest drain in, because if they did, I would have passed away, and my little one certainly would have. And it was taken that my little one
by about 2 or 3 millimeters or something, didn't it?
Yeah. So when they had me in surgery, they actually, when they delivered her, they worked on me first to try and get me, back. Then when they delivered Leah, she was actually past, in effect, past. She wasn't breathing. She was pale. She was floppy and totally unresponsive. And they thought, let's give this a shot. I think it was about 5 minutes. They worked on her, and she suddenly came around. And they put her into a coma. They cooled her body down to try and sort of preserve her brain. Her brain had been massively affected from blood loss. She'd been starved of oxygen because my blood supply was poor to her, very poor. And she was kept in a coma, as was I. But
you were kept in a coma as well, weren't you? And you didn't know that you had become a mum or that she survived until once you had woken up.
No, it's really surreal. So I come round, you come out of the coma, you're in critical care, and I've got no family around me, because this is now a murder or attempted murder investigation. Nobody was allowed to speak to me apart from the medics and the police. So I've got a nurse and a doctor, and they tell me that she's alive, and it's like, wow, that's amazing, but my head's still processing. Okay, how did that happen? Because I knew I'd received 3 stab wounds to my stomach alone. So at the 24 I got, 11 were in my chest, I had them down my side, and 3 were in my right into the belly. So I thought, she's gone. So it's great, but they're saying, but you can't see her, she's in a coma, she's in a different hospital. And I remember having to almost put my hand down to my stomach to realise that there wasn't a baby there, because you've not gone through this natural birthing process. You're being told you're a mum, but you know nothing about the fact that you've delivered a baby. So it's a really strange thing for my head. It took days for it almost to come to terms with the fact that there wasn't a baby anymore in my stomach.
And it was around this time the police came to you to tell you that actually the attacker was your partner Bobby, who had disguised himself.
Yeah, so there was a police guard at the end of my bed, and I could see these formal looking people, and then they came to the bedside and said, Natalie, we need to talk to you about the attack. We need to ask you what you remember. And I told them what I remembered. And then after they broke the news that the person they arrested at the scene, so he was caught literally red-handed and being charged with my attempted murder and being held at the police station, was my partner, and everything shattered. If you also look at qinspire.co.uk, there's a piece that's got things. I did a TEDx talk. It's got sort of that in the media. It's got interviews that I've done. I've sat with Phil and Holly. That's very exciting. But you can sort of see the new stuff. And but reach out to me on social media. Reach out to me. I2QB itself has got its own website, i2qb.org, for things for knife crime. But please, please reach out. I love hearing from people. And I've got my book, as you will say, still standing. Look, I've got yours as well. Same publisher. So we got they sit next to each other in my bookcase, you know. So
I'm honoured to be your book neighbour.